Uh, Welcome to season 3, episode 5. We've got Jeff. Is it Copeland?
Yes, Jeff Copeland.
Okay. I want to make sure I pronounce the last name right. From the sunny state of Florida. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for giving us the time.
Thank you for having me. Hope you guys are staying warm up there in Wisconsin.
Trying.
We just got done with our cold snap of like -10 for 3 days straight.
And I was gone the whole time.
Yeah.
That's the perfect time. That's
one.
The way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was freezing. We're in the middle of a flip right now, so it causes scheduling, because like I'm not gonna go tell people to go out and work in a non-heated house at -14 degrees.
Yeah.
So the weather plays a factor, but we're all here, we're all healthy now. And we're waiting for spring so we can get some weather like you.
It's interesting how the tides are sort of turned for you guys, because here when we're flipping a house, the first thing you got to fix is AC, because nobody will go work in a house if it's 110 degrees and there's no AC.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, we really have to. It depends on when you pick it up, because in the summer we'll get humid and 95, and then the winter obviously we get our negatives. So it's kind of like, what season are we leading into? Yeah, but they're only for a few months, because like fall and spring you may turn it on here and there, but normally you don't really have to. Let's get into your background, Jeff. What got you into your position now? What led you to the things, because you're a small business owner?
Yeah, like you said, my name is Jeff Copeland. I'm the broker and owner of Copeland Morgan LLC. We're an investor-focused real estate brokerage and property management company in St. Petersburg, Florida. We serve the Tampa Bay area. Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater are 3, big cities. How I got into it, and I run across this all the time in doing podcasts and podcast interviews, is people are like serial entrepreneurs. They own multiple businesses. They start businesses. They sell businesses. And we sort of started out the same way. We used to own another business. My wife is a professional photographer, and she had gotten into doing some weddings on the beach. And people would ask us, well, do you guys do chairs or arches, or, will you do the ceremony? And my answer was always, we do now. And so we kind of gradually built up this destination, Florida beach wedding business. And it was kind of all consuming. It grew to the point where that, we were doing it 7 days a week, from sun up to sundown. And then, we hired employees and stuff, and we slowly realized we're just working our tails off to cover payroll, where everybody else is making a living, but we're just kind of breaking even. And so we ended up selling that business, and we were very fortunate. We didn't make millions, but we made, a little chunk of change. And at that time we decided, what, flipping houses sounds fun. It's sexy. I saw that on TV. And like so many other people, we started out flipping houses. I bought a house in Pinellas Park, Florida, which is just outside St. Petersburg. I think I paid $47,000 for it. And this wasn't like way back in the day. I think this was 2012, 2013, right after the sort of dip in the market. And we fixed it up real nice and sold it for, I think, 109 when we were done. And that just kind of got us hooked. And we kind of got into real estate. I originally got my own license just because I wanted my own access to the MLS and my, kind of as a competitive advantage when shopping for properties and trying to beat other investors to these properties. And then that gradually grew into working with other people to help them buy houses. And then they would ask me, do you manage properties? And of course I said, I do now. and here we are today. Here we are today. I have a team of about 15 investor-focused agents. We manage about 320 rental units all over the Tampa Bay area, and we even do some construction and renovation, to help people sort of reposition their properties.
That's awesome. So you've got your hands full.
Yeah, never a dull moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole concept of running a business and everybody else is making money, but it seems like we're always just trying to make the next bill. I think that's such a common theme for small business or people that are starting. And I had that as well. I read a book, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Profit First.
Yeah, I believe I've heard of it. I can't lie to you and say that I've read it, but yeah, I'm familiar with it.
But it was a book that kind of changed the mindset of like, what are you in business to make money? Because then you should start making money on day one. Are you in business to sell the company where you're going to defer your income basically, which is where you don't take your money now and you make all your money on the sale? And what he explains is a lot of people are caught in the middle where they want to make a little bit of money and then want to make a bunch of money at the end.
Yeah,
And it's just,
absolutely.
unless you're refined with it, it kind of clogs what you're trying to do. But
Yeah, and
you guys did it. So you guys got from wedding to real estate.
yeah, and there are so many parallels in what you just said to real estate, because you always want a property that cash flows, but you also want that property to appreciate over time, and trying to balance the two is the key to success, I think.
Yeah. Yep. And once you find your area, like you're niched out in your little area, so I'm sure you've gotten into such a cadence of looking for this type of home or looking in this area, or like an A, B, C class type property.
Yeah, we work with a lot of out-of-state real estate investors. And so our business model now really is, say you guys wanted to buy a property here in Florida, which many people from the Northeast and the Midwest do.
I do now.
Yeah. We would help you find it, analyze it, acquire it. But we do so with also through the lens of a property manager. Like, what are we going to do with this property after you get it? And what's the plan for year one, year two? How do we fix it up? How do we reposition it? How do we raise the rents? And most of those clients aren't just looking to buy one, they're looking to build their portfolio. And so that's kind of our ideal client is, investors relatively early in their career. They're experienced enough to pull the trigger, but they're early enough in their career that they want to buy multiple properties, and it becomes a long-term partnership for us. I have one client who went from one door in about 2015, and he has over 100 doors now. We helped him acquire them all. We manage them all. It's a great story. He's actually under 30. He's like 29 years old. And so a huge success story. We actually have a profile of him on our blog. But that's a great success story. And I love helping him and other people, achieve their goals through real estate.
Yeah. Maybe next time he comes on the show with you. We'll do like
absolutely.
a tag team.
He's actually a CPA, so we've actually done a series of tax talks with him on our own podcast. So yeah,
that would be
an interesting guy.
Awesome show.
Yep.
We'll try to plan that after this. But first off, congratulations for helping him get to where he is.
Oh, thank you.
I know, like you said, it's hard to find the buyers that are going to pull the trigger, because it's scary if you haven't been in the world of real estate, thinking like, all right, I'm going to have a rental property. It can seem daunting.
Yeah, so many.
And I'm not looking at you, Natasha.
It still does feel daunting, Marcus. It still does.
But once you pull the trigger and you find the property manager, the tension, it subsides a little bit. Would you not agree?
Yeah, usually the first one is the hardest and the scariest. And once you punch through all that red tape and do it once, you realize that was kind of easy. That was kind of fun. And you get kind of a taste for it and you want to do it again.
That's exactly where I am right now. And I was telling you, Marcus, briefly, I was like, oh, well, we just got back from vacation in Oregon, and I'm now looking at the Oregon shore. I'm like, okay, we're going to get a house out here now too. So
yeah. Oregon will do that too. It's a beautiful, beautiful area.
It really is. And it's warm.
You're welcome, Natasha.
Thank you, Marcus. You're the best.
But Marcus, you brought up a great point. So many people get to the point of like that analysis paralysis, and they just kind of get stuck there, and they're scared to move forward, but they don't want to move backwards, and they're literally just kind of stuck. And I kind of joke that I'm on a mission to cure analysis paralysis. And that's one of the things that we really try to do for, not just our clients, but for prospects out there that are interested in the Tampa Bay area. We try to provide those educational resources. And we actually have a page on our website dedicated to sort of helping you through analysis paralysis.
That's really cool.
That was when I was getting into real estate, and I had a W-2 job, and I just started listening to a lot of real estate talks and podcasts, and the one thing they kept bringing up was analysis paralysis. So I made it to myself that when I made the jump to real estate, I wasn't going to get stuck in it, and I was going to jump on the first deal that I had. And then like the next episode, coincidentally, was like, hey, don't just jump into a deal, make sure it's the right deal. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't know what to do. And then I was like, this is what they're talking about. Just if I trust the numbers, it will be okay. And we had worked for a broker who had some real estate. So I did have a little bit of not a safety net, but support system that made it not as crazy. But I remember the first auction I went to, my legs were shaking because I was so nervous. Like, all right, is this the right move? Is this not? And that was like that, the feeling that I forget when people are, all right, I want to buy this duplex or this fourplex. Like, there's so many nerves that go into that.
Yes, there
So I'm
are.
just trying to make everything like, just take some deep breaths. It's going to be okay. You're going to wake up tomorrow. You're going to own a duplex or a fourplex or a single family, but your life's not going to be different. It's
Yeah.
going to be
And
okay.
I'm sure, as an agent or broker or investor, sometimes you help people find these deals and you can just see it. You can just see this is a great deal. You should buy this property. And they end
Yeah.
up walking away from it. And, in many cases, we end up selling it to somebody else because it was truly a good deal, but they just got stuck in that analysis paralysis. So we have a page. You can actually find it by going to 5simpleformulas.com, FIVE spelled out. And we kind of walk you through some of the numbers, the cap rate and the debt service coverage ratio, if you're talking about commercial properties, and some of the other key metrics that you want to look for, some little tricks and tools you can use, the 1% rule, the 50% rule, to kind of help you analyze properties. And I tell people all the time, it doesn't cost you anything to analyze properties. You can analyze 100 deals this week if you want to. You don't have to buy any of them. You don't even have to talk to an agent. Just sit down, figure out the income and expenses, do some research on how much this will rent for, figure out how much the taxes are going to cost, how much the insurance is going to cost, how much property managers charge in your market, what's normal for repairs in your market. And it's not rocket science. You learned all the math that you need to know to analyze rental properties when you're in like 5th grade.
Can you give me
income or addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's it.
Can you give me the website name one more time? Because I am going to be looking at that once we get off of here, so I can.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the number 5 spelled out. It's 5simpleformulas.com. Okay. And what that does is it just directs you to the page on our website where we have the underwriting and property analysis tools.
That's a great
awesome.
little URL that you have too.
Yeah, it was there, so I snapped it up.
Might as well.
And we'll put that in the show notes. So if you're listening after the show, you can go in there and click on it. A little background question.
Sure.
Where did you learn to analyze properties? Obviously, we had the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, but to put it into real estate practice, what was your background in that, or where did you learn all that stuff?
Well, I mean, I do have, I have a master's degree and I have a bachelor's in management and international business. So I've taken accounting classes and things like that. But to be honest, I learned it initially, I think, through the School of Hard Knocks, looking at rental properties and trying to figure out, does this make sense? How much is the rent? How much are the expenses? What's left over at the end to cover debt service and things like that? So, to some extent, it's common sense. But when you get into the actual formulas and things that are kind of standard across the industry, many of those are taught in real estate school. And when you go to get your real estate agent's license, or especially your broker's license, they have a whole, multiple days on analyzing investment properties, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to help our clients do this. And so at least in Florida, they really drive that home when you get your broker's license.
Yeah, and it's the same up here. And when people are starting out, that's the one thing I tell them: your education to get in real estate is probably going to be free or near free. If you pay for like a seminar or pay for a class, good on you. I'm not going to say not to, but you can get through it for free. It's not like you have a medical degree and you're going to school for 7 years and you're in the hole financially.
Yeah, there's not a huge high barrier to entry to get into real estate with a real estate license or whatever. And, a lot of the stuff that's being taught in these guru seminars is just standard industry practices, and we're giving it away for free. Many people are giving it away for free, but I do understand that some people need to sign up for a course and register for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that it makes them go and they sit down and they learn it. And that's okay too. You have to figure out what works for you, but education really is the key to learning how to trust those numbers and then not be afraid to pull the trigger on a good deal.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I tell people. If you're the one that wants the school feel, that you're in a classroom or a conference, like there are a lot of seminars. Otherwise, there's meetups. You can just go and sit in a free meetup and people will just spit terms out at you and just write down notes and then go home and research it. It's free education. Just getting within the culture, I guess, is the biggest part.
Yeah, you want to be able to speak the lingo and more importantly, understand the lingo. If I tell you, properties here are trading at a 5 cap and you don't know what that means, well, you're flying blind, you're in the dark. But it's a very, very basic concept that you need to understand if you're getting into investment real estate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, and do you guys you said you do commercial and residential, correct?
In terms of multifamily, yes, we do like 5 and up on the multifamily side, which are considered commercial, at least for financing
Yep.
purposes. We don't do like office and industrial.
Okay.
And then we manage some single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and then 5 to 20 unit apartment complexes.
Okay. So usually I mean, for all intents and purposes, residential. People are living there. You're not doing
Apartments
office
and
suites.
houses. Yeah, that's a
Yes.
fair way to put
Okay.
it.
Do you have more of one? Do you lean one way, or do you prefer one type of
I would say
asset class?
that our sweet spot is probably that small to medium multifamily, sort of duplexes to small complexes. But we do have a fair number of single family homes and a handful of condos and things like that. But our real focus area is multifamily.
Okay. And do you have your full-time staff that manages those, or do you sub out for contractors? How do you make the dream work for these investors? How do you make it so easy for them to get into this?
That's a great question. So on the brokerage side, it's more of a traditional, real estate office where I'm the broker and I have about 15 agents who are out there working with their clients, helping them buy and sell real estate. On the property management side, it's a little bit different because I do have full-time staff that are doing leasing, what we call resident services. Basically if it's vacant, it belongs to leasing. If it's occupied, it belongs to resident services. So, lease renewals and maintenance requests and accounting and everything that goes along with it. And so, yeah, I do have 2 full-time staff members there for leasing. One does leasing, one does resident services. I have a full-time maintenance coordinator who kind of oversees the various vendors and subcontractors that we work with on the maintenance side, and we have some in-house sort of handymen as well that help us with routine smaller maintenance items. And so yeah, it's definitely not just me. I'm kind of at the top of the pyramid, but we have a great team here that allows us to be kind of a one-stop shop for remote investors.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like you set yourself up pretty well to kind of like dominate that market.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this earlier this week about competition, and I said, really, we don't have much. There isn't anybody else that's doing exactly what we do. Now, of course, there are investor agents and investor friendly agents in the world out there doing business, but to be able to connect that with property management and maintenance and renovations and kind of have the soup to nuts solution for somebody who's sitting in Wisconsin or Chicago or elsewhere and wants to buy a property here, it makes it really plug and play and easy for out of state investors to to kind of plug their property into our system. And once it gets towards the tail end, we've repositioned it, we've raised the rents, you're able to either refinance and pull out some capital, or maybe you save up some more capital and we do it again.
I love that you are like that one-stop shop where if I wanted to buy a property in Florida and I was like, ooh, it's kind of a fixer upper. Well, we could really get a lot of return if we knew somebody to help us, fix it up. But so many times when you're out of state, you're searching on Google, you're searching on Facebook, you're searching on Angie's List to try to find a contractor. But if it's, a one-stop type of deal, it'd be very appealing.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I guess you could say fortunate because on the property management side, especially, we have 300 doors all over town. So we're already like a high volume customer for HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and things like that. And so when we do have a rehab or a larger project, we know who to call, but also those guys take good care of us because they know we're a regular customer. We pay on time, we give them business, and we're going to give them more and more and more business. And so it really kind of feeds upon itself.
Yeah. So that's a really
and that's the best part of talking to. What was it?
I was just gonna say it's a great offering. That's all I was saying. Right,
it is, and it's so cool meeting someone that's like, oh yeah, I thought about getting a duplex, but I didn't have a down payment, and you're like, I can help you with that. Like, there's hard money out there that you can still make the deal work. But if I get it, like, what am I going to do? I don't want to go out there at 2 a.m. to fix a leaky pipe. You won't. Get a property manager.
I can help you with that.
And then it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so cool to have. It's basically like the best tool in their tool belt is the property manager. They've
Yeah,
got
absolutely.
the connections to funding. They've got the connections to contractors. They've got the connections to the market. They are your best tool. So when you're going out and you're thinking about getting into real estate and you're like, God, do I get a property manager? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not going to hurt you.
yeah, for me,
Hopefully it doesn't hurt you.
I'm obviously a little bit, have there, you can obviously see why I have this opinion, but absolutely you need a property manager, not just because it makes your life easier for that one property, but I think the bigger picture or the bigger view is it makes your real estate investing scalable. You might be
Yep.
able to manage, everybody has a limit. You might be able to manage 4 properties. You might be able to manage 8 properties. You might be able to manage 10 properties on your own. And yeah, sure, you'd save an 8 or 10% management fee. That's great. But you compare that to the guy who has a property manager and can keep scaling up to 80 properties, 100 properties, 200 properties, and who's more successful at the end, in the long run.
Yep.
It's obviously the person who's leveraging the systems that a property manager offers.
Yeah. And it's just having the wherewithal of factoring that into when you're buying it. So I manage all my properties. We've got some properties up here that we manage, but my own properties, when I bought it, knowing that I was going to manage it, factored in a property manager, because there is going to be some day where I'm either going to pay a staff member to do it, or I'm going to just say, property manager, I'm just going to go sub that out, have somebody else do it. So I want to buy it now, knowing that I don't want to do that forever, because that's not our end game.
Yeah, that's a great approach.
Yeah,
factor in the
and
cost
that's
of
what
property management when you analyze the property. And I tell people, even talk to your CPA, maybe you should be paying yourself for managing your own properties, either through an LLC or whatever. And you can compare, well, that's considered earned income versus passive income, which one makes more sense for your personal tax situation. But if you've budgeted for it and you're doing the work, there's nothing that says that you can't pay yourself or pay your own LLC for managing your own properties.
Well, what I
Yep.
love about having a property manager is, like, it's tax time now. I literally, just for my property manager 2 days ago, got a list of all the expenses I paid out. It's all kind of, it's broken down for me so easily that I'm like, okay, here, tax guy, here's everything that you need to know, because I wouldn't have been able to break it down quite as precisely as they did.
Absolutely. That's a great benefit as well. And I have people sometimes like, I can pay the AC guy, I can stroke a check for that, or I can pay the roofers if you want me to. And I tell them, you probably want that to flow through us, because then it's going to show up on your accounting statements.
Yep.
You're going to get it at the end of the year in that annual statement that's going to have every penny in, all your income,
Yep.
every penny out, all your expenses. Now, we obviously usually don't pay property taxes or mortgage interest. You may
Right.
have business travel or meals or whatever that you've got to add to that. But having that annual statement with all of the
Exactly.
operating expenses is huge, and it makes your life so much easier.
Right. Because I know we had to do a lot of renovations to the house before we bought it. We documented all of that stuff, but just like all the little minute things, like, oh, this is squeaking, we need the WD-40 it or whatever. That's all minuscule. Like, it's all written out.
Yeah. And I had a thought on that one. Oh, I was on that guy that you were referencing before that went from 1 door to 100. I don't know how many buildings that is, like, separated between, but when you're talking about an investor who's trying to get his expenses and income broken down, light items, and then per property, to try and do that all yourself, where a property manager, I'm sure you've got some sort of CRM where it's automated that can track all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most property managers are going to have a property management software suite. We use Buildium. There's other ones out there.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Propertyware, Appfolio. Those are usually the big 3. But yeah, it breaks down everything by property and then by rental income or other types of income, if you have laundry income or late fee income or whatever, and utility income. And then it breaks down your expenses by by category under repairs or, insurance or, whatever your property manager is paying on your behalf, you get this nicely formatted PDF statement. And just like Natasha said, you hand it to your CPA along with whatever other expenses you need to add to it, and your taxes are done.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think the conversation that I've had a couple of times was if the property management fee is throwing you off, like it seems like a lot, or you're like, well, I'll try it myself. It's like, okay, over that year that you'd pay me 8%, 10% would be X amount of dollars. At the end of the year, how many hours do you think you'd have to put in? Because you're not free. Your time is, I don't know what you'd pay yourself, but how much time are you going to have to do to get all of this stuff in order for your just taxes? This isn't throughout the year maintenance, driving to and from, just taxes. And I think you'll find out that the payment to a property manager is really not significant.
No, property management is one, incredibly cheap for the level and amount of services and technology that most property managers provide. And if you think about it, if you have a house, the rent's for $1,000 a month, you could easily envision yourself spending 20 hours a month, dealing with maintenance, dealing with your tenant, collecting the rent, doing the accounting, handling the repairs. On $1,000 house, your property manager is going to make 80 to $100 a month. And so it's a very low per unit for property managers. And you have to scale up to a certain size before it makes financial sense. But as a landlord, it's obviously it's one of you get the most bang for your buck out of that property management fee if you have a great property manager.
1000% agree with that. 1000%. I just, like, all the headaches that I could have incurred with my tenant alone, like apparently there was ants in the house or something like that. The amount of phone calls I would have had to take from her to get to the root of the issue would have been like just way too much. I wouldn't want to spend the time on silly stuff like that when somebody else can be dealing with it instead.
Yeah, our maintenance coordinator deals with that all the time. And you can imagine, perfect example, the tenant has ants. So you call the tenant, where are the ants coming from? Are they in the ceiling? Are they in the floor? Are they coming under the door? Is there an ant hill outside? You might spend a half hour playing phone tag and then 10 minutes on the phone with them. And then you figure it out. You're like, okay, well, I guess I got to call the pest control company. So now you call Acme Pest Control, and you get them on the phone, you spend 10 minutes on hold, and you talk to them and you tell them, and now you got to schedule the appointment. Well, the tenant says she's home on Wednesday. Can you get there Wednesday? No, but we're available Friday. Now you got to call the tenant back and see if she's available on Friday. You can imagine you can spend hours on
the struggle's real
as an ant.
So many phone calls.
If you have one property in one location and you're not in that location, how do you know that that's the best pest extermination company to use too? Like, sure. You don't know all the vendors in the area. So that's why having a property manager is so key.
Yep, but it's so easy to spend an inordinate amount of time on some of these property management tasks, and a good property manager can make that all go away and just hand you your check once a month or transfer it to you electronically, and then give you your statement at the end of the year to hand to your CPA. And that enables you to do the important stuff, whether that's spending time with your family, growing your real estate portfolio, working a W-2 job, whatever it is that you do. My advice is you do you and let your property manager do that.
I agree.
Yeah. And I think we've kind of beaten the whole actual X's and O's part, like the value there, but also when you're trying to build that, you're trying to scale, trying to get to the next door, the next building, having a property manager that you're like, hey, I'm looking at this building. Jeff, would you come with me? I'm looking at a 50-unit apartment building that you're going to manage. Would you want to come with me on that one?
Absolutely.
Like, more
and
than
I'll
willing.
Tell you this,
now you've got people, a teammate in your corner automatically.
Yeah, like and a couple things I'll add to that. In some cases, if you're in Wisconsin, we'll go look at it for you here in Florida. We'll take video, we'll put it up on YouTube and give you our running commentary of what we see at the property, what our thoughts are on the property. And I tell people all the time, I'm not going to sell you a headache, because it only becomes my headache after you sign at the closing table and you fly back to Wisconsin. And so that's where our business model really forces us to kind of align our goals with our clients and, help them purchase good, solid properties that are going to perform well. They're not going to be a headache. And I've learned the hard way that we can manage, a dozen or 2 dozen Class B properties for the amount of time and attention and energy and resources that it takes to manage one, poorly configured, class D property or whatever, because you run into, collection issues, maintenance issues, and those rougher properties just take an insanely amount more time than the better properties.
Yeah. And walking that through the homeowner, I think you said it perfectly. I'm not going to set you up for a headache with it being the property or the tenant, because at the end of the day, if it's a headache for you, it's a bigger headache for me. So I think we're going to work together and try and find you the right spot and the right person to fit.
Yeah, and that's where our business model really diverges from a more traditional real estate brokerage. Most real estate agents out there, you see them at the closing table, they pick up their commission check from the title company and they say, "Hey, see you. Bye. Good luck. Maybe we'll talk again in 5 or 6 years when you decide to buy another house or upgrade or downgrade." But they hit the door and you not, that's it. Your relationship is over. Whereas for us, that's really just the beginning. Great. We helped you find this property. Now, what are we going to do with it on your behalf?
Yeah. Yeah. And having that next step in that vision with them, it's gonna keep everybody happy and make that long-term partnership happen.
Absolutely.
The one big thing that I wanted to hit on, because you are a broker and there are property managers out there that are not brokers. Like myself, I am not a broker yet. I actually took the broker test, passed the initial so that I can go and take the final, and found out within the state I did not have my points to become a broker, which was very disappointing. So we're working on getting to that broker status. Property managers that have brokerages have advantages and can do more for you. Like example, signing leases or negotiating leases. So questions to ask a property manager. What would you, other questions along that line in terms of credentials or experience or market analysis? What are some questions that you would tell our viewers? Maybe they're not buying in Florida, but you want to set them up to get a good property manager. What are some things that you'd think you'd want to ask that an experienced property manager would have good, solid answers to?
That is a great line of thinking. And I think the number one best question that you must ask your property manager is, what happens to my money and my property and my tenants and my whole portfolio of rental properties if you die? And as morbid as that sounds, there are so many, and you alluded to this, sort of lone wolf real estate agents, who are out there managing a handful of properties, but it's just them. And if something happens to them and they're holding your security deposits and they control the bank accounts where your rent money goes to, and they initiate the transfers of your rent money every month, that can cause just an unbelievable amount of problems. I had a client who had that happen to him with some properties in Texas. And as a result, he asked me a lot of these questions. And it's sort of along the lines of succession planning. If something happens to me, I know that my CPA and my CFO has access to our accounts. He knows how to process our monthly draws. My team is still in place to collect the rent. We've got sort of backup to our backup. But if you're working with a lone wolf real estate agent who is sort of, a shade tree property manager, and I'm not knocking them. I mean, I did it myself, that you got to get started somewhere.
Yeah.
But as a landlord, you have to do your due diligence and make sure you understand what you're getting and what happens if they're not available.
I think that question would throw off a lot of people.
Yeah.
It would definitely, but it's a very valid concern because people get in, car accidents or COVID or whatever, things like this happen all the time. And as a landlord, the bigger and bigger your portfolio gets, the less and less you want it to all flow through one individual who controls all the purse strings and the bank accounts and everything else. Just make sure they have plans in place, if something happens.
Yeah. Because contingency plan is what the property manager is. We are the person there when things hit the fan. So when things hit the fan for the person who's supposed to control the fan, then
now you've got
what
a problem.
happens?
Yep.
Yes, exactly. No, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought of that one. And I'm just picturing an investor asking a property manager that question in their initial meeting, and what kind of answers we'd get from that.
Absolutely. And I think it's a question that has to be asked because that person's going to be collecting your rent. They're going to control the bank accounts where your rent money and your security deposits are held. And if nobody can get to that, you might be stuck for 3, 4, 6 months. Your tenant says, "Hey, I'm paying my rent," but landlord can't
Yeah.
get it. And it can cause some just massive problems that could literally, drive somebody to bankruptcy or something if they're not cautious.
Yeah, that could be devastating.
I think it's overwhelming too. Like when you get your first property and you're like, oh, well, I need a property manager. And then you're like researching your property managers. And when we looked for a property manager, we didn't know what questions to ask. We were just very, like, we thought of questions, but I like that you brought that up because we never ever would have thought of that question to bring up.
Yeah, and you alluded to this earlier. Also ask them, what kind of software are you using? What kind of reports am I going to get to make my taxes easy? And if they answer with an Excel spreadsheet or I'm going to
Right.
send you an email, that might be a red flag, and you might want
Right.
to rethink their technology stack and
We
who you want to use.
we interviewed 3 property managers when we initially went to do our property, went for our property out in Oregon. One property manager, he was fine. But he seemed like he wanted to be on the golf course more so than he wanted to actually like take care of our property. The second guy was brilliant. He was so smart, but he was very old school. Where like I feel like I can see him like on his calculator, like typing stuff out and like handwriting like in his ledger. And then the third person came out and we thought she was such a bulldog that we're like, she's not going to let anything happen to our property. We want her. So it was an interesting scenario to like have such 3 completely diverse property managers come out, but it was a good learning experience too.
Yeah, and another good question I think is, how do you collect the rent? Do you offer online payments for tenants? Do you offer electronic funds transfer? Can the tenant set up auto debits?
Mhm.
There are still property managers that drive around town and collect cash, and that is
Yeah.
not a smart way. It's not a scalable
Whoa.
way, not a safe
Oh
way to do business.
no, not at all. Yikes.
I make sure that we're online. Like I might accept checks. I think I'd be open to that idea, but I'm all online. I don't want cash. I don't want you to drop something off in a mailbox.
It can get lost so easily. It can get misplaced. It can,
And we've got other solutions.
yeah.
Yeah,
It,
there's so many easy tech solutions out there to accept payments. There is no reason to accept cash. And I learned that the hard way too. I used to have one tenant who always wanted to pay me in a roll of hundreds, and he was off by $100 one month, and I didn't catch it. I had to eat that $100 because, it's he said, she said, and there was a miscount or whatever. I'm like, you know what, that is it. We are never ever accepting cash again. But we give our tenants the option to go down to like 7-Eleven or CVS and pay at the register with a barcode. It's a company called Pay Near Me. So if you have a tenant that just needs to pay cash or insists on paying cash, look into that as a solution. They can go to any CVS, 7-Eleven, or a few other retailers and literally pay at the register.
that's
Interesting.
interesting. I had not heard of that one. But I'm gonna look that up. That's super cool. I've always preferred on the CRM that we use. You can link up to your bank account, um, or you can put in a credit card or a debit card. And I think they do attach to, it's not Venmo, but there's some sort of app
Yeah,
Zell.
and
like
that's
that.
always a preferred solution, but in my experience, there's always that 10% of tenants who still wants to go to Amscot and get a money order and either bring it to the office or mail it. And so, you can't legally say no, we don't accept checks or money orders, and so you're gonna have to do some of that manual collection and accounting. But yeah, I highly advise people to not accept cash.
Yeah, and it runs. I listened to Bigger Pockets as I was starting up, and I still listen to them today. But there's always horror stories of, well, my biggest mistake was accepting cash. It's like, okay. And then the next person would come on like, yep, I accepted cash and it blew up in my face.
Yep.
Um, for that reason, someone says they paid, they didn't. There's no way to verify that one. That paper trail is lost. Um, in for out-of-state investors, especially, the access to that information to know, all right, has the payment been paid? Is it in transit? When should it hit my bank account? Because they still have bills to pay. Like they're not owning properties for nothing. They're relying on that cash flow. And to give that transparency to them, I think is super important and kind of gives you a leg up on competition in your market.
Yeah, absolutely. All of our owners have a portal they can log into. They can run a report. Are any of my tenants delinquent at the moment? They can see when the payment's posted to the accounts. We do our transfer out to the owners on the same date every month, so they know when to expect their funds, and they can plan around that for mortgage payments and other bills and things like that. So yeah, just having that monthly workflow is definitely key.
Yeah, and on the repair side, I'm pretty sure you're. What was the CRM you're using?
Buildium is our property management
Buildium.
software.
And I was down to Buildium, and then I actually went with Hemline. So Buildium was up there for me, but I know with Hemline you can go in, and let's say we accept pets, and if we accept pets, we do semi-annual inspections just to make sure if things are damaged. And I can take pictures, which are time-stamped. I can upload those to our CRM. Whenever the property owner wants to go in and check to see what's all going on, all the documents are in there, pictures are in there. I can send them messages of repairs that need to be done. All that stuff, all they do is log in and they see all their information all at once. And from what I've heard, it's worked great. So
absolutely. If you're a landlord or a property manager and you're still using like an Excel spreadsheet, you're just making life hard on yourself. Find a good property management software. There are a number of options to choose from, and they're very scalable and flexible, and they have other, programs and apps that'll tie into them to just make your life so much easier. And it makes, you might be able to manage 10 or 20 properties on a spreadsheet. Well, that might be 100 or 200 with the right software.
Right. I know we didn't touch on your agent or your broker side. Is that how much do you do in terms of percentage of your day? Do you do in that side? And do you prefer helping? Is it just like a select few, or are you kind of open to how do you run that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do still do sales as a broker. And then I also have a team of about 15 agents who are also helping people buy and sell real estate. I would say it's something like, 40% brokerage, 40% property management, and 20% putting out fires, whatever comes up that day. And obviously on the brokerage side, it kind of comes in waves. I had a handful of people that say, hey, we want to list our property. We're going to do a 1031 exchange. And we said, you know what, let's wait till after the first of the year. So my January has been really, really busy with brokerage activities, and the property management stuff is kind of steady. It's always there in the background, and it always requires my attention. But yeah, I still do sales. And then of course I have to support my agents if they have a question. Hey, what should I do about this contract? I need to do an addendum. Can you look over this? And I really try to support them and be really responsive to them, because I've sat in that seat where they are. And if you're out there trying to put together a deal or put together a contract and you need to get it done tonight, but you need an answer from your broker, there's nothing worse than trying to text them or call them and getting crickets. And so I take that responsibility very seriously for our agents. And we also have a great, sort of onboarding and training program for our agents to kind of take them from, hey, great, you just graduated from real estate school and you have your license. Okay, forget all that. Here's how you actually practice real estate here in Florida.
It's crazy how different the books are to practice.
Yeah.
Like obviously the forms are going to stay the same. The legal things you need to do are the same.
But what they don't teach you how to do is, how do I put together an offer? How do I submit an offer on it? Just the very, very basic stuff. They don't teach you that in real estate school.
Just had this exact conversation last night with another agent. It's crazy. She's like, nobody taught us how to actually, put an offer together. She's like, we learned the forms. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is
out of the
classroom.
classroom.
I'll share this for any real estate agents who are out there listening. When you submit an offer, put together like a cover email that says, hey, dear listing agent, my name is Jeff. I'm submitting this offer on behalf of Susie and Steve. Here are the bullet point highlights of their offer. Here's who their lender is. I know all about their financing. These guys are rock solid. Put a little cover note in there, even if it's just the body of the email with your your offer attached, because 9 times out of 10, the first time they're going to see it is on their phone when they're out in the field, and they need to be able to get the highlights and go talk to the seller or the buyer and discuss your offer. If you don't do that, it might be 5 o'clock tonight before I get back to my desk and I can open up your PDF and have a good look at it. I still get so many emails with just an attachment. This is, see attached. And I'm like, who are you? What are you even emailing me about? And I don't have time to open this PDF right now. So you just lost 8 hours until I get back to my desk. So that's a pet peeve of mine. It's something we teach our agents. And I'll throw that out there as a free nugget of wisdom for any real estate agents who are listening.
I do like that idea, and I hadn't used it before, but if you don't mind, I'm gonna adopt that practice.
Absolutely. That's why I threw it out there. It's a freebie.
Because I always talk about like the path of least resistance. That's the route that more often than not we should take, is the path of least resistance. And that one basically saying, hey, this is the offer from who, the who, what, when, where, why, and putting those highlighted bullet points up there. Do you do an explanation or just bullet point?
Well, yeah, I usually do a little intro and then bullet points, because we all know we want the same info. How much is the price? How much is the deposit? How long is the inspection period? When is your proposed closing date? And who's doing the financing? That's like the who, what, when, where, and why that everybody cares about. So if you can put those 5 things in a bullet point, it enables the agent receiving it to look at it on their phone and in 30 seconds get on the phone with their client and say, hey, I just received this offer. I haven't even opened it up yet, but here's the broad strokes. Let's talk about this. That can put you several hours ahead of the next guy who just sent the PDF attachment with no explanation.
Yeah. And in this market, hours are huge.
Absolutely.
Yep.
A day late and a dollar short happens all the time.
There was a new listing on Wednesday. We went and saw it on yesterday, and right after our showing, like we walked out of the door and I went into my email and it was like offer received. And we're like, okay, so it's been up for 24 hours. They've already got one offer at least. And then there was another property that we chose not to go to the showing because it had 130 showings, multiple offers in the first day.
Yep. It's the same here. It's a red hot seller's market, and 24 hours late is too late. You've missed it. Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like we are hitting our hour. Are we not?
We are, but we have one.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I know.
I want to keep asking more questions.
Well, hey, feel free. You can always break this up into 2 episodes or whatever you need to do. I'm not in any
We'll
rush,
break it up into like 10 episodes. We'll keep bringing you back.
I love it.
Sounds good.
One final question I always ask all of our guests. Do you have any like DIY projects that you've gotten into that you're like super proud of?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, my wife and I kind of started out flipping houses, and that's something I think that you never lose, that desire or that enjoyment that you get out of, swinging a hammer and fixing up a place yourself. And we're actually in the middle of renovating a triplex that we bought back in October. And I'm actually doing like a chronicle of the triplex on Instagram with video. So I'll send you that link. You can put it in the show notes on Instagram. It's the multifamily guy. And literally, we started with like a walkthrough. Hey, here's this property we just bought. And every time we do something, like here I am, ripping out the bathroom, here I am taking out this wall. And I think it's a kind of interesting behind the scenes look at the process of a gut rehab. So I think some folks will find it interesting.
Yeah, definitely. What was the Instagram handle on that one?
It's the multifamily guy.
The multifamily guy.
That's a website that I have, the multifamilyguy.com. It's
Love the
same. It's like 2 websites for the same company, but yeah, that's we kind of focus on some multifamily training and education and stuff through that website, and then CopelandMorgan.com is our main brokerage website. But yeah, I think it's the _multifamily _guy on Instagram. If you just search for that, I'm sure you'll find it.
I'm sure I can.
Awesome. Is that the best way to contact you?
Probably the best way to find us, contact us, get to know us is just go to CopelandMorgan.com. From there, you can find our podcast, you can find our blog, you can find our training materials, you can find profiles of our team members, and obviously get in contact with us or find just about anything that you need about our company.
Sweet.
Awesome. And we've got so much stuff to put in the show notes. So hopefully, Natasha, you caught all that.
Yeah, I've got Natasha's email, so I'll email you all the links and stuff so you have them right there in front of you.
Perfect. You're the best.
Awesome.
Well, cool. I'm gonna come back on again. We will reach out to you after the show.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I hope everybody.
Yeah, it was a great show, wealth of knowledge. Thank you for sharing that with us and for our guests.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'll be looking for something in Florida here. Might not be this year, but I'll be going down. I know who to call.
You know where to find me.
Can I rent it out once you buy it, Marcus, for a weekend?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Awesome talking to you. Thank you for the time. We'll definitely have you back on for part 2 of 10 here shortly. And then we'll keep going. You can keep dropping some good nuggets for everybody.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again. You guys stay warm up there.
Oh, we'll try.
Oh, we'll try.
Thank you.
You stay cool down there.
I'll do my best.
All right. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much.
Bye.